Hi, good morning. I'm Dr. Guertin. Today I'd like to talk about actions and thoughts that are largely unconsciously controlled rather than consciously controlled. So, if I were to ask someone on the street, are you unconscious? I bet that person would answer, no, no, I'm here, I'm talking to you, I'm conscious. And if I were to ask someone else, well, what is the definition for you of consciousness? Um, my bet is that person would say, well, if I'm sleeping, I'm probably mostly unconscious, and if I walk on the street, I'm probably conscious. Well, that's not false. Those two answers are right. But if we use a more inclusive and a more general definition of unconsciousness, then it's different. We may say that we are unconscious most of the time throughout the day. Um, yeah, that's right. When we sleep, we're largely unconscious. Um, But it's the same thing when we eat. We are largely unconscious because are you thinking about the muscles activated for chewing and those smooth muscles involved in deglutition when you're swallowing? I don't think so. It's not my case anyway. When you're walking to work or to the grocery shop to do your grocery shopping, you're also largely unconscious. You're not conscious about the muscles you're contracting at the right time for a successful locomotor pattern. So you're largely unconscious. When you're sending text messages or reading text messages, you're focused and you're having your attention on that specific task, but at the same time, you're not thinking about your muscles, your emotions, or what people around you might think or are doing. So you're just largely unconscious. Um, Another example: if you're presenting your work to some of your colleagues, you're most probably, I hope so, conscious of the words you're using for that presentation, but you're not conscious about your breathing, your cardiac rhythm, or the sweating that's starting to increase because of the stress associated with the presentation. So I think you understand that most of the time, most of the activities we are engaged in are associated with largely with unconsciously controlled action. Um, to go back to an example I used last week in another one of my presentation, walking is a very good example. As I said just 2 seconds ago, when you and I walk on the street, we purposefully decided to start walking, but we don't think about muscle contractions. We don't think about contracting the quadricep and relaxing the the tibialis anterior to move forward. So the reason why is because for most of the tasks, motor tasks we do on a daily basis, there are sets of neurons that are non-cortical neurons that are capable of undertaking those tasks perfectly. So in the case of walking, to get started, yes, of course, there's an input from the motor cortex that is necessary for voluntarily starting walking. But otherwise, there are sets of neurons in the spinal cord, in the lumbar area of the spinal cord, called the locomotor central pattern generator. And those neurons are capable of getting organized and sending the right signals to the right muscles at the right time for proper and successful locomotions. If all of a sudden there's an obstacle in front of you, again, your brain doesn't need to be involved. Well, your cortical area doesn't need to be involved because there's those other neurons located in the brainstems that are responsible for directional changes. And if all of a sudden you need to walk faster or even run, because let's say there's a bear that showed up in front of you and you're scared to hell, then there's another set of neuron in the mesencephalic area, the mesencephalic locomotor region that takes care of sending a new set of commands to the central pattern generator in the spinal cord. So all those neuronal activities can go on and normally go on without involvement of the cortical area. Same thing for breathing. There's a set of neurons. We're not capable of changing breathing rhythm, or we can increase breathing length. I mean, we can inspire deeply and expire deeply if we want to, but otherwise for the rhythm is it's quite it's largely under involuntary motor control, because there's a set of neurons specifically in the pre-Botzinger area that controls rhythmogenesis of breathing. Same thing for cardiac activity. We don't have much control over cardiac muscle contraction. It's because there's another set of neurons, the cardiac rhythm generator in the sinus node in the brainstem area. Again, same thing for another motor behavior involving smooth muscle, the micturition, to empty your bladder. There will be contractions of muscle called the detrusor that covers the bladder, that gets contracted whenever it's necessary, when the pressure inside the bladder is high enough. And that involves another set of neurons specifically taking care of that motor control. It's called a sacral micturition center in the sacral area of the spinal cord. That doesn't require input from the cortical area either. So now I'll just talk about motor behaviors, either smooth muscles control ones or skeletal muscle control ones. But there are also thoughts. Most people would say, oh yeah, I'm thinking about this, about that, so I'm consciously thinking about it's not false, yeah, but most of the time, actually, according to some researchers, we have 6,000 uncontrolled thoughts associated with overthinking per day. So that takes over pretty much all the time we have throughout the day. So yes, from here and there, we think voluntarily about this or that at work or when we're speaking with someone and things like that. But most of the time, mental activity that we have is under involuntary control. So to come back to the initial questions, are we unconscious or conscious? Most of the time, we'd say that yes, when we're sleeping, we're largely unconscious. If we undergo a significant surgery and are under a complete anesthesia, we're also unconscious. But during the day and throughout the many activities we undertake, we are often largely unconscious also. We may be conscious about very specific tasks here and there, but most of the time we're unconscious. Our thoughts are just, coming and going without our control. most of our physical activities, such as walking, running, breathing, are under involuntary control as well. So we're largely unconscious in that way. So thanks for joining me. Next week I'll talk about stress and death. Thank you.